We all agree the lagoon's the biggest issue. Each of you have been out knocking on doors, talking with voters. What do you hear is the second biggest issue in the district?
Well, I know there's a lot of technical jobs being lost. I mean, I touched on this before. A lot of my friends at the Kennedy Space Center that I've worked in for many years have lost their jobs, have a hard time finding another job, have to move out of the district to get jobs, and even then it's at a pay cut. So we need to make sure that we bring our technology investment back into this district. I commend Mr. Posey for what he's done for the past 30 years. I'd like to look towards the future and the millennials and what's going to happen in future generations. And I think Mr. Posey did touch upon it. The future of our country, of the world, depends on development of space, because we have a limited resources here on the world and a limited time. The world that we live on eventually is going to lose its environment, and we're going to have to be able to go out beyond this biosphere. And the only way to do that is to increase our technology and our technology investment, which ties into education as well. Our educational system needs to tie into technology, and we need better educational system. I mean, our country as a whole is ranked very low with other major countries in the educational process. So we at least have a pathfinder to know how do we improve our educational process. The other countries are doing it. So we know how kids think, we know how they learn, and the other countries are stepping up and improving their process, and we need to do that here and tie that into technology and create new industry, and that ties into new economies. New economies being created with new industries, and we improve our future.
Okay, thank you. Congressman, second biggest issue in the district.
Jobs in the economy, and that rolls over into space as well. Poll after poll, survey after survey, says the #1 impediment to job creation in this country and in our district is overregulation by the government. And #2 is fear of further overregulation by the government. Every day there's a thing called a Federal Register published. All 535 members of Congress get a copy of this Federal Register. And it contains all the new regulations written by unelected people. We make the smallest part of the law in Washington, D.C. is made by elected people. 99% of the laws are made by unelected people, bureaucrats who write administrative rules that are enforced as laws. Every day, 435 members of the House, 100 members of the Senate get this daily register, and it tells all the president's executive orders, it tells all the proposed rules, the changes to the administrative rules, and they throw them in the trash. Nobody reads them, onion skin thin paper, 8-point type, and you can't vote on them anyway, so they go in the trash. I started collecting them 4 years ago. In 4 years, how big do you think a stack is?
Huge.
People guess 10 feet, 12 feet, 20 feet. It's 7 stacks over my head at the end of 4 years. The fire marshal basically had me remove them because they were afraid it'd fall and hurt somebody. People have no idea about that amount of regulation. Somebody attacked me just a few minutes ago about being kind to people regulated by the CFPB. What we've attempted to do is help local and state banks, our community banks, which is the lifeblood of small business in our communities, which are being beat upon too badly by the CFPB. The CFPB is not doing anything to go after the big banks that caused this meltdown. They're taking the wrath of everything out on the smaller community and state banks, and that's what we're taking on the task for. There's a YouTube interview I had while he appeared in our committee last week with the chairman and CEO of Wells Fargo. And among the questions I asked him during the 5 minutes I was allowed was, what difference has CFPB made in how you do business? Have they done anything that would stop something like this from happening again? And the only thing he could tell me is, well, they're working with us. Nobody's been sent to jail. There has been no accountability. They bought off all their sentences with consent decrees with the Department of Justice. I tried to get copies of the consent decrees. The Department of Justice refuses to give them to me. You know how they work. You go to somebody who has got deep pockets, and you say, okay, listen, I think there might have been a crime committed here, but if you come up with $4 billion and give it to my agency, we'll call it a day. And I've tried to see how the money was spent. The only one we could find was the most recent one from Wells Fargo. And it doesn't guarantee that it will compensate the military people and the others who were injured by their bad business practices. But, you know, the overregulation, those stacks, you talk to any local banker. You know, I talked to your Chamber of Commerce down here. Last time I talked to your chamber, I said, how many people here think their banker no longer loves them? There are about 80 people here. And everybody in the room raised their hand but the banker. And if we had time, I'd tell you what they're doing to the banks, but they're destroying the small, locally owned banks that you could get approved in, that would stimulate your local business, and doing nothing to the big banks that cause this meltdown.
Gonna stop you
Well,
there.
just a little bit.
Corey, second biggest issue in the district.
I would also agree, it's jobs and job opportunities. Usually I don't hear as much about regulations, but I completely agree that there is corruption throughout the government, in the legislature, in the federal government, and if there is, then we should be introducing laws. If Dodd-Frank isn't strong enough, let's make it stronger. If there needs to be improvements, then that's what people in Congress do, you know, you introduce legislation and highlight issues. I hear a lot still about the government shutdown, and how that hurt different entities and businesses, how it hurt Kennedy Center. I hear how that we need to bring like new, the Economic Development Council of Brevard is pretty awesome, but I've been talking to them about bringing in an offshore wind industry. I'm kind of an expert on offshore winds. I know we have to get around that monopoly that the legislature has, that no one can sell energy except for Florida Power and Light, and that's going to be on the ballot in November as well, codifying that monopoly. But then we could get an offshore industry going in Brevard that would produce thousands of jobs, 16% of the state's electricity. Someone's going to get that, and you have to have a deep water port. Why not us? So I do talk to a lot of people about really great job ideas for engineers. Would be great. And then, but there's other things too in regard to the budget and economy, protecting veterans, protecting Social Security and Medicare. People are worried about privatizing Social Security and Medicare, which was in the Paul Ryan budget, I believe twice, and Congressman Posey voted for that. And then of course transparency in government. And I think T.C. Palm has done a fabulous job of exposing the money, you know, follow the money with the stories on the lagoon in the past year and a half. So I think people are waking up to it, and they really want, you know, Citizens United overturned and some kind of a way to release the grip of special interests from our legislative officials in state legislature and federal.
Okay, thank you.